Solving polynomial equations in factored form. This picture, while I did not take it, is a picture from the City Museum in St. Louis. They used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to be home to the world's largest pencil, and that's a portion of a picture of it. So solving polynomial equations in factored form, this is basically combining the last two parts from our last video. So for solving equations, our first step is to set our equation equal to 0. We can't do it unless it's equal to 0. Step 2, you're going to factor out your common monomial. We said factor out the greatest common factor in the last video. It means the same thing. Then step 3, we're going to use our zero product property to solve for that variable. So let's see this in action. Example 1, we've got 3x squared plus 18x equals 0. Step 1, set the equation equal to 0. Hey, that's already done. It equals 0. Step 2, factor out that common monomial. So between 3 and 18, I can pull out a 3. Between x squared and x, I can pull out an x. 3x times x gives me 3x squared. Bring down my addition sign. 3 times 6 gives me 18. X times 1 gives me x. So I've got 3x times the sum of x and 6. Step 3, I'm going to use the zero product property to solve. So that means either 3x equals 0 or x plus 6 equals 0. If 3x equals 0, that just means that x is 0. If x plus 6 is 0, subtract 6 from each side, and x is negative 6. Try this one on your own. Pause your video until you get an answer. Did you get 0 and 3/2 or 1 1/2? If you did, give yourself a little drawing of a car. Can be as awful as mine. If you didn't put an X on the problem, go back and figure out where you made your mistake. Once you figure it out, put a circle around it. Example 2, we've got 4r squared equals 14. For this one, we are going to have to employ this step 1. We have to set the equation equal to 0. I'm going to keep my r squared on the left and move my 14r. You want your lead coefficient, just like in the last unit that we dealt with, you want your lead coefficient to be positive. So while I could subtract 4r squared from each side, that makes it a little bit more complex. So I'm going to subtract 14r from each side. Since r squared and r are not like terms, that's going to give me 4r squared minus 14r equals 0. Now it's just like the other problems we've dealt with. Factor out my common monomial. I can factor out a 2r, which leaves me with 2r minus 7. That's still set equal to 0. Zero product property, either 2r is 0 or 2r minus 7 is 0. If 2r is 0, that means that r is 0. If 2r minus 7 is 0, add 7 divided by 2. That means r is a positive 7/2 or a positive 3 1/2 or 3.5, however you want to represent that. You may have started to notice that we always have an equals 0 part right now. That's going to be true for all of them in this half of the unit. Once we get beyond just having one monomial term out front, then we're going to start having both values as something other than 0. But right now, one of your answers should be 0. So if nothing else on your test, you can always put 0 as one of your answers for all of these problems, and you should be able to get half the credit. Try this one on your own. Again, remember you want your w squared term to be the positive one. Pause your video now. Did you get 0 2/3? If you did, give yourself a glasses wearing smiley face. If you didn't, put an X, go back and figure out where you made your mistake. Circle it when you found it. If you made a mistake, again, remember that you want to have that lead coefficient positive. So I would subtract 16W from each side first. You have 3 homework problems for tonight. Watch your signs and solve for each of them. Have a great evening.